Hi, everybody. I'm Hannah Jackson, Lubbock singer, songwriter, musician, and I am very happy to be here today for a great visit about a very critical topic, live and acoustic sound. If you are a musician, you know how important it is to have good live sound to be in this business. So we have Lubbock musician, session guitarist, music producer, and owner of Deeper Recording Studio, Sam Choate, with us here today. Hey, Sam.
How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
So you did a session with Lubbock Cultural Arts.
I did.
How did it go?
Long.
Yeah.
But it was good.
Yeah.
We had a lot of people stay, and, it was a lunch break, so people had to go. But
Sure.
many people also stayed and asked questions and also contacted afterwards and either got some other questions answered or copies of the slideshow
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So
Well,
it was
that's
really
awesome.
good.
Well, I heard you did a lot of work on your workshop, and everyone is going to benefit so much from his work. And so we want to just kind of go through some of those things with the audience today. Are you cool with that?
Yeah,
And
let's
spend
do
some
it.
time with us? Okay.
Absolutely.
So my first question, what is the best way to set up equipment? Like, we need to avoid feedback and to enhance our stage presence as performers. Can you share what you think is the best way to do that?
Absolutely. I think that to start off with, knowing where you're setting up is crucial. And if it's a place that maybe you've only been to once to talk to the manager or the owner or something, or maybe you haven't been and you booked the gig over email or phone, paying a little visit and asking them where you'll be setting up ahead of time so that you're not running late, as many of us do, and then crammed into a corner. Where you don't maybe have enough space, or it's
Yes.
just an awkward, they're like, oh, this is where we always have people set up. And it's
Mhm.
like, you're hanging from the ceiling and
Yep.
the speaker's over there and
Yep.
it's
Been
insane.
there.
Yeah. So that's kind of step one. I like to get there and I like to ask questions. I think you can be a little bit assertive in life, and it's okay. I know
Yes.
that we're in the South, but it's okay.
It is okay.
Yeah, but you can come into a place, and if the space is either like obstructed by a bunch of tables, you've got people that are allegedly going to sit right there while you play, you can ask somebody and talk to them and say, hey, would it be all right if we scooted this stuff around real quick and just made a little bit of extra space so I can set up?
Mm.
A lot of people, I think, are afraid to do things like that, and it's
Sure.
okay.
Right.
Do be respectful of the place you're playing. Since a lot of us are in bars and restaurants and stuff, you don't want to just take away tables that can potentially make them money.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also okay if you make a little room for yourself so that you're not crammed in the corner and barely able to move and everything.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
don't you feel like most venue owners or managers really don't know much about music and setup and
Sure.
sound and all of these things? And so they're probably not going to be offended that you are asking questions about you doing your job the best that you can because it benefits them, right?
Yeah, that's
Mhm.
the ultimate goal is
Mhm.
like they're paying you money to do a service for them. And so why wouldn't you want to make sure you can do it the best you can?
Yeah, I think they respect that just
Yeah.
as you respect them doing their best work too. So
Exactly.
yeah, so use that little nugget of courage to ask the tough
Yeah.
questions and to go ahead and be assertive with what you're
Yeah.
doing. Yeah.
Yeah. Assertive is not rude. Like,
Right.
don't be rude. Just, ask some questions, see if you can get a little more space if you need it.
Yeah.
And remember that they're also there to have a good night and that they've got their interests in mind. You've got yours, so you can work together.
Yeah.
That's to start with.
That's great.
Um,
What else?
what I will piggyback off of that with is
Mhm.
that you make a little bit of extra space so that you don't have to do something I see a lot of people do, which is put their speaker right behind their head
Yeah.
and then their microphone right in front of their face. And
It doesn't
what you
work.
get then, that is like, if you would like to create feedback in a laboratory environment, that's what you do.
Right?
Because all it is that you've got sound coming out and then going in and then feeding back through that loop. And so
Right.
I'll see a lot of people set up their system in a very unoptimal way. And then they'll go to the mixer and they'll, especially on their vocal mic, they'll turn the treble or whatever high frequency band all the way down
Ah,
to keep from getting feedback. And then it sounds like this.
right.
And it's just not, You can't hear what they're saying, and you
Yeah.
can't hear what they're singing, and it's
Well,
just
yeah.
muddy and weird.
And usually in a room, most rooms that we play in, it sounds like that anyway,
Yeah,
even with the good treble.
it's echoey, or you were mentioning before, like lots of concrete or
Yes.
tile in certain rooms.
Yes,
So
exactly.
you got to do the best you can from the get go,
Right.
because we are playing in a lot of places that aren't like beautiful, acoustically treated, like
Mhm.
performance halls. A
Mhm.
lot of them are bars, restaurants, like things like that.
So what would you suggest instead of having the speaker right behind? What do you do?
So the best thing that you can do is anywhere in front of the pickup pattern of the microphone. So
Mhm.
these are likely cardioid microphones. They could be hypercardioid, but basically you'll have a knoll behind the microphone and all the way around here, and that's in 3 dimensions too. The microphone can pick up sound. So pretty much anywhere around here that I get, the microphone's picking it up.
Correct.
If I talk into it like this, then that is the null point, most likely, unless these are hypercardioid or supercardioid. You can use that to your advantage with respect to two things. So, one is that you want your mains, you want your loudspeaker that you are projecting to the audience in front of the microphone.
Mhm.
Speakers also have um, directionality to them.
Mhm.
So the best thing that you can do, like I said, is just get it in front of the microphone. It doesn't even have to be that far. You don't have to be on a festival stage in your local Jimmy John's. Like you can
Mhm.
just a little bit in front. Anything that's not behind is better. And then what you can also do to mitigate feedback is use that null point of the microphone as a guide to where you want to place your monitor,
Mhm.
because you'll get the best what's called gain to feedback ratio by placing it in the null point of the microphone. So if you've got the kind of standard cardioid, then that means the null point is directly behind the capsule. And
Mhm.
so that means right there is where your monitor should be, which is also probably, the
Mm.
angle it's hitting you best at.
Yeah. Okay. So, have you found that most people that are doing that with the speaker right here don't have a monitor, and that's why they're doing that? Because they're trying to hear themselves from the mains? That doesn't work, does it?
Totally. They're totally doing that. It sort of works. It works if you just started like a week ago and you bought the speaker out of your buddy's trunk for $60, which is
Right.
how I got started.
Yes. Same.
Yeah.
Somebody gave me a speaker and said, "Good luck."
Yeah. In fact, I don't think it was 60. I think it was actually 30. I think I paid $30 for
Nice.
like this huge 15-inch piece of junk that made me money.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you lay it on the ground. Sometimes, when the budget allows, you get a pole for it. But
Sure.
yeah, starting out, I tried that a few times. And what ends up happening, first of all, you run into feedback issues. If you move your head, then all of a sudden, boom, there's feedback. If you don't move your head, there's probably still different feedback. And the other negative thing is that if you're at a volume level that's actually audible and comfortable for people in the room,
Yeah.
you are like blasting yourself. It's
Yeah.
very
Too
uncomfortable.
loud for you.
And so if you
Mhm.
set it at a point that is comfortable for you right behind your head, then it's probably not right for the room either.
What do you think if you did it to like the side and angled it to where it is in front of the mic a little bit, but maybe you could hear it like if you did have one of those fancy speakers where you could hear um, more from the side, you can hear the mains and use it as your monitor and have most of the speaker angled out towards your audience. Do you think they could get away with that if they don't have a monitor just yet?
I've seen people do that, and I even have friends that absolutely we're on the same page about all this stuff, and they know better and everything, and they do that stuff in smaller spaces because you have to,
Sure.
and you just kind of make the most of it. Or sometimes also it's last minute, and that's just what you had in your car, and um, or you're like, I don't feel like it,
Right. It's
which I
heavy.
don't condone. Don't condone
Don't be
that.
lazy.
Yeah,
Right.
but it does happen sometimes. And
Yeah.
yeah, I've seen people do that before. I think if you're experienced with what you're doing, you know what you sound like, and you can sort of mix yourself live, then sure, you can get away with it. And yeah, sometimes the biggest struggle in these spaces is actually floor space. So you may not have the depth that you need in a certain place to like put a monitor out front.
Right.
So I do understand things like that. It's like, yeah, it's not optimal, but people do that and they still get paid at the end of the night.
Sure, of
So
course. And most people don't notice, but they do notice feedback.
they
And
do
that's a
notice
great
feedback.
way to not get asked to come back.
Yeah, or unplugging your guitar without muting the channel.
Ooh, explain that to us because not everybody knows what you just said.
Um, Mute your channel before you unplug it.
Okay, so mute your channel means?
On your mixer, there will either be a physical button that's either a mute button, or
Right.
on Yamaha it's backwards and it's on. So make sure it's not on before you plug things in or unplug them, because sometimes you'll get a surprise
Mhm.
from the speaker. And I like to tell people in those instances, well, you got to let the bad noises out of the PA before you can let the good noises out. That is just me trying to cover my
Yeah,
tracks and make what I did, which was very bad and also potentially damaging to the speaker,
right.
into a funny little joke that people
Yeah.
can move on
Yeah, we
from.
have lots of little sayings for those moments for
Yeah.
sure, but
But yeah, you want to make sure that even when you're plugging in or unplugging a monitor, your loudspeaker, anything, mute the channel or turn the board off,
yeah.
because it's just safer that way. You can damage your speaker. You can make a very, very loud noise. You might be in a little coffee shop, but someday you might be on a big festival stage.
Mhm.
And instead of like a $500 speaker, you're on a $500,000 sound system, and they will be very, very displeased with you
Yes.
if you do stuff like that.
That does
So,
not go well.
yeah.
So when you're seeing people on stage and they're looking up at the sound guy, like, okay, especially if it's one where they're switching, like festivals, and they're
Yes.
looking at him like, now? Is it now? How about
They're
now?
waiting for a thumbs up.
That's right.
Yes.
They're muting the guitar and then you unplug and go.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Same
Yes.
with microphones?
It's best to do so, because especially if it's not your system, if you're not familiar with the microphone that they're using, potentially it could be a condenser microphone with phantom power, which we can just brush on that. And you can also do damage to the microphone by what's called like hot plugging, which means you're either plugging it in or unplugging it while power's running through. You could potentially damage microphones and stuff that way. Again, if you don't wait for them to
Give
give
you
you
the
the go
heads up.
ahead. So
That's right.
always just make sure stuff is either muted or turned off before you go unplugging stuff. Because
Okay.
even me, sometimes I just am forgetful and I'm like, oh, this should be fine. And I forget that my monitor is still turned on, and I unplug it and it
Yeah.
goes and it
Mm-hmm.
makes a very loud, bad noise.
Yeah,
And
we all
I
do
get
it.
scared that I just broke my expensive speaker.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Okay, so that's really good. That's really helpful.
Yeah.
Very common thing. So I'm showing up at a gig. I've got a speaker and I've got a microphone. What else do I need? How do I do this?
That's a good question. Some speakers do have onboard DSP, which stands for digital signal processing.
Okay.
So some speakers, like for example, the system that I use are the QSC K10.2s. So it's just the second gen K10s. And those you can actually roll up to a gig with no mixer, and with a few settings on the back, plug in a microphone to channel one and plug in your guitar directly to the speaker.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be awesome. That is about $1,000 speaker. That's per speaker. And I have three of those. So
Nice.
it's not a brag. That's just like,
That's what it takes.
that's what type of speaker has those features. Generally speaking, I see a lot of people gigging with speakers that are in like the $300 to $600 range, which are also quality pieces of equipment. They may or may not have options to that. So what you'd want in most cases, regardless, is to have a mixer in
Gotcha.
addition to that.
And so when you're saying mixer,
Mhm.
you're talking about the board with all the
Mhm.
little knobbies and the slides,
Yep.
or an iPad,
Sure.
which some people use. Yeah.
Yes. More
What's
power to you.
right? That's a little fancier.
Yeah. And there are other products on the market now, but by and large, you're talking about the Behringer X Air series with the iPad, and which are great, great, great boards. Like they have so many different sizes for pretty much any need that you have. And if you do have the budget to get one of those, some of them after a certain point also double as a multi-channel interface, so you can use them for recording. Um, but you will need an iPad, and you'll also probably need a router, because notoriously they have bad Wi-Fi routers in them, and you just want
Yes.
an external thing.
Especially when your audience comes in there with their cell phones, it gets even worse.
For sure.
So, okay, mixer. Let's say I'm not going to go Behringer. I'm not going to get an iPad. I'm not going to do all that just yet because I'm still trying to decide if I want to keep doing this.
Yeah.
So I've got a mixer. How many inputs do you think I need for a small acoustic gig? What does that look like? Where do I plug it in? All of that.
I would really recommend still going a little bit larger than you think you need.
Okay.
Because if you're gonna spend the money, you might as well get something where a friend can be like, "Hey, can I jam with you tonight?" And the answer can be yes. So for you, if you were coming to me and you play guitar and you sing, then I would suggest at minimum really like a 4-channel mixer, something with 4 mic preamps in it. And generally speaking, the way that you can tell how many mic preamps something has is it will have that number of XLR inputs.
Okay.
Which we can put
XLR is.
Yeah, we could put a picture
Here's a
of an
slide.
XLR. That it's a balanced cable used in audio. It's like this. These are XLR cables. They'll generally be a circle with 3 pins on them. And sometimes they'll also be combo jacks, which will look like that, but with a 1/4-inch input on the center. And what's great about those is you can plug a microphone or a guitar or a keyboard into those and kind of get it done.
Can you do all of those things in one channel?
You cannot.
All
I
at
would
the
not
same
recommend
time?
it. No, you cannot.
Don't do that.
Yeah, not without drilling and machine work and all that stuff.
I mean, I haven't made that mistake or anything. It's fine. It's just don't do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
So if I had 4,
yes.
what am I plugging in? I'm plugging in my guitar. Am I using a DI?
It depends.
Okay, what's a DI?
The answer is most likely yes, you are. A DI is a little box that converts your unbalanced guitar signal into a balanced signal that you can then plug into a mic preamp. So the reason, like in layman's terms, why do I want one of those? It's because it sounds better. It sounds drastically better. You'll also get a better signal to noise ratio because the thing that balanced cables do that unbalanced do not is a very genius way of canceling noise like electromagnetic interference, radio frequencies, all that stuff that can enter into the cable. Because you've basically, without the shielding and without the third pin, you've got a giant antenna here. And so what that does is essentially you've got an additional piece of cabling that runs through, picks up the noise, and then flips the phase on it and cancels it out, which is absolutely genius. Without knowing all of that stuff, the answer to that basically answers what a DI is. But the reason you want to use one is because it will make your guitar or keyboard sound better, way better. What you'll get without one is an impedance mismatch, which just basically means the signal's incurring greater resistance, and that's going to translate to like a duller tone and less depth. It's going to sound noisy. You're going to get 60 cycle hum or hiss on top. It's going to be dull and dark and muddy, and it's just not going to sound like as three-dimensional and nice as you wish it did.
Gotcha. And again, it's really important to get that clarity in these spaces because it's
Yeah.
already muddy.
Yes.
You already sound like this when you're saying, "Hey guys, here's my next song." Right? So we've got to do everything that we can to combat that.
Yes.
You're explaining it super great. So,
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I appreciate you. Okay, so now let's talk in layman's terms. I have a DI and now I have a board and I know what a 1/4-inch is. It's going to go from my guitar. If my guitar plugs in, it's going to go from my guitar pickup into the DI. Does that go into input or output on my DI box?
So you connect the goes intos to the goes outas.
Okay.
So you are coming out of your guitar into the DI. And so you'll go to the input. And then out of that to the mixer. So
on the backside.
Output. I'll get to what that output is in a second.
Okay.
Output to the input of the mixer.
Gotcha.
Of one of the channels. And What you'll notice about the DI is that on one end, it has a 1/4 inch input, and there's so many DIs on the market. So there's all kinds of stuff from simple, like, guitar input, XLR output, all the way to like USB and
Fancy stuff.
loop back and all kinds of stuff. So you don't need to know about any of that stuff at this stage, as long as you get a solid. I like radial; they're more expensive, but they'll outlive us all.
Okay.
You can also get like a live wire from Guitar Center. Those will be a lot cheaper, but they just may not last as long.
Sure.
They do the same thing roughly.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
How much is that going to set me back?
the cheaper one, the live wire, will probably be about $40-$50.
Okay.
The radials will be more expensive. I'm thinking probably about 150.
Okay.
But again, like you're talking, this is fantastic equipment.
Mm-hmm.
It's I think they're made in Canada, I believe. You could use it as a self-defense weapon.
Yeah, there's always
They're
that.
extremely
Sometimes you need
robust.
that after a late gig.
Yeah. Yeah, you're basically carrying around a brick at that point.
Right,
So
right.
buy two, keep one in a sock.
Yeah, why not? Bap.
But yeah, I go after the old adage of buy once, cry once.
Ah.
So if it's something like that, the radial is going to hold its resale value.
Mhm.
So if you do decide later on, most likely you would keep that thing forever.
It's going on your pedal.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's because it's going to outlive us all, like I
Right,
said.
right.
But if ever you were like, well, I just don't really do this anymore, and like, I thought I wanted to do this, but I really just like playing at home. Totally fine. You can sell that thing for
Heck yeah.
basically what you paid for
Yeah,
it.
real
So
quick it'll go.
rather than the live wire, which you'll be lucky to get maybe $20 if it
Mhm.
still works.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
Yeah.
good advice there.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got my guitar. I'm plugging in 1/4 inch to the DI. The
Mhm.
DI on the other side is either an XLR or a DI going to my mixer, which
That's
is
right.
either into the XLR
Mhm.
spot in one channel
Yeah.
or into the DI spot, or into the 1/4 inch spot. Yes.
Possibly.
Okay,
Possibly.
where should I put that in my mixer then?
Which 1/4 inch spot were you thinking?
Well, my vocals are going to be in number one.
Right,
We know that.
right.
Okay, and so number two is going to be my guitar.
Mhm.
So if it is, do I need 2/4 inch to use my DI?
You'd have to check and see what it has on there, but most likely you'll have your guitar cable, which you've probably had since you were 12.
Yes.
And then on the other side of that, you'll need a microphone cable probably.
So go with the XLR.
Yes.
Go with the XLR.
Yeah.
Not a 1/4 inch.
No,
Okay.
the exception would be if it has this would be fairly unusual and probably have a different purpose than what we're talking about. There could be a DI out there that has a 1/4 inch TRS output.
Okay.
And that just means it's the same cable with a different end on it. So it's the exact same cable, it's a balanced cable, and rather than 3 pins, you still basically have 3 pins, but instead they are tip, ring, sleeve, and that's what TRS stands for.
Oh, okay.
So you'll see an additional little band on the jack.
Mm-hmm.
And you can actually check a lot of different things out. Compare a guitar cable to a TRS cable, and then if you've got an old pair of the wired earbuds that have the microphone on them, look at that because those will be different too. Those will be TRRS.
Interesting.
And they have an additional band on there.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's because there's a microphone input in addition to the balanced audio.
Gotcha. So much knowledge right
Sorry,
here, y'all.
yeah.
It's good stuff.
I'm trying to stay on track.
No,
but
you're
it's
doing
like,
great.
Yeah.
I just think that it goes to show, like a lot of people hire musicians and they just expect us to show up with the stuff and set up the stuff, and they have no idea how much goes into choosing your gear, how much money it costs to have gear in the first place, know how to use it. So this is really helping a lot that you have so much knowledge about it. Okay, so I'm ready to start playing now in my concrete room.
Mhm.
And
your tile kitchen. Yeah.
yes. And it has to be loud enough so that people can hear over the talking. And it has to be loud enough where I can hear it, but it's not too loud when my ears are bleeding at the end of the night. So how do I sound check myself? Once we get this stuff set up, which I feel like we've pretty much talked about most of it. We didn't talk about monitor.
We can in a minute.
Okay, so we'll come back to that. But how do I sound check myself if I'm like playing and trying to hear what's going on out there? That has always been a tricky thing when you're doing it solo.
It is a tricky thing. It just is. There's a couple things you can do um, to make things easier on yourself.
Okay.
And what I would start with is, and I would do this whether you are brand new or experienced. If you're starting out, set up your stuff at home before you show up to a gig,
Mm-hmm.
so that you can learn how to do stuff, so that you can make mistakes in private and in the safety of your own home and off the clock,
Yes.
and you can learn your system and get comfortable with it. Um, that way, what you can also do is you can begin to dial in your guitar and your vocal
Mm-hmm.
and listen to it. I recommend, um, in your living room or your bedroom, wherever you've got space, find a spot where you can set up your speaker
Mm-hmm.
and put it over there and face it towards you. And you set up yourself, your mic stand, your guitar. If you have a monitor, great. All of that here at this end. Dial in your EQ, and if you have compression, and get your balance right
Mm.
against the faders. If you are just starting out in this, maybe it's a new system or you're just starting out, this is also where you can start to set your gain, which we can talk about later as well, just to an acceptable level where it's like, if you have meters on the board, like top of the green, maybe a little yellow, never red.
Never red.
Never red,
Too loud.
basically. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And that red at the input stage means your gain is too high. Not that your fader is too high, your gain is too high. So start with those and get those set appropriately. Again, where you're getting a healthy amount of signal, but you're not clipping. But what you can do is, with that speaker setup, you can get a basic balance against your guitar and vocal and get it where you're comfortable with it and where it sounds like what you want other people to hear. And it sounds like what you maybe hear in your head. And take a picture of that with your phone,
Yeah, that's
because
good.
stuff gets bumped around, gremlins get in
Oh,
and they turn
yes.
knobs
Yes,
and,
they do.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Tricky.
Yeah. Or, you loan it to a friend and they completely change everything. And then you're like, oh no, take a picture of it. It won't be exactly the same for everywhere you play,
Of course.
but it's a fantastic reference because it's something you can trust. You were there, you heard it, you were in front, and your ears could deceive you in different rooms, in different weird acoustic environments. And so that's something trustworthy you can go back to and, yes, tweak and change over time, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe apply to different rooms if it's a really boomy room, or if it's a very bright, slappy tile room. You can change things a little bit, but generally speaking, if you're kind of bare bones in it,
Yeah.
then that's something you can do to just get a basic setup as far as the balance of your instrument and your voice go. And as far as volume out
Mm-hmm.
front goes, because that's the big one, is how do I know how loud I
Right.
am? There's two things I would recommend there. One is it just takes time to get to know your speaker and
Mm-hmm.
what it sounds like for it to be at an appropriate volume level here, because you're not hearing it
Sure.
pointing towards you like you were at home.
Right.
You're hearing it point away from you from probably about this angle,
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to be a lot louder out front than it is where you are. So you can somewhat gauge what that sounds like in the room using your ears.
Mm-hmm.
But a trick that I like to use is, depending on the type of board you have, if you need an aux cable or if it has Bluetooth,
Mm-hmm.
then you can play music on your phone and set it where you think it ought to be. Pick a song that's singer-songwritery, that's
Yes.
acoustic and vocal, some Jack Johnson, some Gregory Alan Isaacoff, something
Yes.
like that.
Mm-hmm.
Really, really simple, not Bruno Mars with a 7-piece horn section,
Right.
like something simple.
Comparable to what you're doing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It will be different because that's recorded, that's
Of course.
compressed, that's mastered.
Right.
But you can at least use this to gauge an overall volume of your PA and play that, and then go walk around the room
Okay.
and listen. Listen at the back of the room,
Mm-hmm.
and then maybe walk through to about the middle.
Okay.
And as you're walking back to stage, pass in front. And generally speaking, all of these rooms are different. We know
Mm-hmm.
that. But what you can do is sometimes the best you can do is like, okay, I can hear it at the back, in the middle, I'm enjoying it, and out front, like right in front, that's why you move the tables.
Mhm.
Because nobody, not even your mom, wants to sit right here in front of your speaker.
No.
You don't want to
You
sit
don't
right.
even.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I was
Because
gonna
if
say.
it's at an appropriate level for a medium-sized room,
Right.
it's going to be
Too
too
loud.
loud here.
Mhm.
Of course it is. So, but that's a trick that I use often. It's not perfect, but it's a really, really good starting point. You can walk around the room, hear what volume level that your system overall is at, go back to your spot on stage, listen again to what that sounds like in the room, and then quickly fade it out and then match your levels to that. Don't wait too long because you'll forget what it sounded like, but you
Ah,
can bring up your levels to match that and what it sounds like
that's
kind of
cool.
bouncing around the room.
Yeah, that's
That's
great
what I
advice.
do.
That's cool. Yeah.
If you don't have, some people have digital boards and over
Mhm.
time they can save
Save them.
presets.
Yep.
That works, but how do you get those presets dialed in? If you
You got to
don't have
do
a
it.
friend or you don't have somebody you hired to come with you,
Yeah.
um, then that's what I would recommend.
That's a really good trick, y'all.
And
So,
sometimes you can bring a friend out,
yeah.
especially if it's your first handful of gigs. Bring a friend out. They don't have to be a musician.
Mhm.
They can,
They know what they like and what they don't like. They can
yeah.
tell if it sounds good or not, and that's what you're
Yeah.
doing.
Sometimes it's even
Pretty
better,
basic.
yeah, if
Mhm.
they're just a music listener,
Mhm.
and they can be like, I don't know. It's kind of hard to understand what you're saying. You can
Right.
go, okay, let me turn down either the bass or the low mids on my voice,
Yeah.
or bump up the high filter.
Sure.
Um,
Sure. And then I like your idea. Take a
mhm.
picture.
Take a picture
And
if
then
you don't have
s-
savable presets.
yeah.
That way you can see like, okay, this is what I did here. You could probably even tag the picture with like, La Diosa.
Yeah, it'll
This is what worked
probably
there.
save your location and tag your location on the
Yes.
photo. But
Yes.
I think that's a great idea
And you
to go
could
ahead
make
and
an
do that.
album on your
That's a
phone.
great
Yeah, with
idea.
different snapshots from different
Yes, that's
places.
brilliant.
If you're using an analog board, and yeah, just use what's available.
Right. That's
Yeah.
great. One more thing I want to talk about before we get into some of your favorite microphones and
Mhm.
speakers and whatnot. Um, how do you record your show using a laptop, and why would you want to do that?
Yeah. There's a lot of different reasons that you would want to do that. You could use it just as practice. You could do it like footage of a football game and review it later and see how you sounded.
That's a great way to do some self
Yeah.
awareness of how you
Yeah.
are performing and
Yeah.
fix
Or
some
like,
things.
was that note as bad as I thought it was?
Right?
Was that joke funny?
Right.
Things like
You
that.
might even actually sleep better after you listen to it. You might
Sure.
realize that you're
It
amazing.
wasn't that bad. Yeah.
Right.
That thing, it wasn't actually that bad.
Okay.
But yeah, you can also use it. We have so much technology available to us now. It could be really, really useful for making content. If you either have, if you're not using your phone for a set list or to watch time or something like that, you could potentially set up your phone recording video and then record the signal from your mixer directly to your laptop and make some content out of it.
Yeah.
There's even free video editing software out there like DaVinci Resolve where you can pull in video from your phone and audio from the board and stick it together, and then boom, you've got, if you record a 3-hour set, you've got so much content.
Yeah.
You've got reels for months
That's
probably.
great.
You know?
I never thought about that before.
Yeah.
It's kind of always like, oh, because I'm always last minute sweating it out, trying to
Totally.
look presentable and
Yeah.
all the things, and I'm on the floor, literally
Yes.
crawling to plug things in. And the last thing I'm thinking of is, I want to record this moment. But that's great content that can be
Yeah.
used, and you've done the work.
Yes.
You've done all the sweat. You might as well get the most out of it.
Yeah.
So that's good right there.
And a lot of boards these days, even your more basic, like the Yamaha MG series or the Behringer Xenix and stuff like that, they'll have very, very basic recording interfaces. It'll be a USB cable out that you can just plug into your computer, and you can even use free software like Reaper or Audacity
Hmm.
just to get the audio in.
Okay.
And other boards, like we talked about briefly, the X-Air series from Behringer, or the board I use, the Behringer Flow,
Hmm.
those will have multi-track interfaces, which just means that rather than a stereo track as it was mixed on the board in the room, you can just get the direct signal of your guitar on one track and your vocal on another track. And so you can mix it in post that way too.
Gotcha.
Um, But yeah, so there's a lot of reasons you might want to do that. It's very, very simple to do. Like most of the time, you just need a USB cable and free software.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's
hmm
awesome. Good point. All right. So, do you have any other favorites you want to talk about? Microphones, amps, equipment, anything like that that you want to let our viewers know about?
I really am of the mindset that you should get what you can afford, and then depending on what that is, maximize it. Use it to the best of your ability. Learn as much as you can about it. If that is the $30 15-inch giant huge, it looked like a TV, the speaker that I had, like the old CRT TVs.
Mm-hmm.
That was like the speaker I had. Even if it's that, learning the ins and outs. Um, Beyond that, I think that there are a couple pieces that are just like tried and true
Mm-hmm.
that are very, very acceptable industry standard. Like if you want to, you can spend $750 on a microphone, or you can spend probably $60 used on an SM58,
Mm-hmm.
and it's fantastic.
Yeah.
You can build a fence with it.
Mm-hmm.
It's also a great self-defense weapon.
Yes, in a sock.
Yeah,
Yes, that's great
in
advice.
or out of the sock,
In or
really.
out.
Um,
Yeah.
and it just works. And everybody uses them. They're completely ubiquitous. So learning the sound of that really is kind of all you need. I think that basically what you can do with both the speaker, the mixer, and the microphone is find the best value that you can get. Because if you go too cheap, you're getting junk that's going
That's
to
true.
break. It's not going to sound good.
Yeah.
Especially with speakers, they will just crap out at low volumes. They will
Mm-hmm.
sound, not only will they already sound bad, but the moment you belt that really awesome high note you've been practicing, they will distort, and it's bad. That's what my starter speaker did. It was
Mm.
garbage.
Mm.
What I moved to from there was a used set of EV ZLX series. They were the
Mm-hmm.
12s. And used, you can get those for about $350 a piece. I think they're about 500 new per speaker. I think that is about the beginning of solid quality, like professional quality.
Mm-hmm.
There are speakers below that in price. I would recommend, unless you are just starting out and you just got what you got, if you are in that if you are in that position, start saving. But that's a really nice sweet spot. Is like $500 a box. You're getting something that is totally manageable. You're not freaked out that somebody's gonna, you know, grab it and steal it because it's made of gold.
Mm-hmm.
But that's like your workhorse level of speakers. And again, with the microphones, you just have to spend enough that you get a piece of quality equipment,
Yeah.
which for dynamic mics, about $100. You know, you can get an SM58 brand new. You could probably find a deal for like $100 with a stand and a cable, even on Sweetwater or Musician's Friend.
Love those.
And the idea is that once you've got a quality transducer, which is what a microphone is, it's also what a speaker is. They take in sound and they convert it to an electrical signal. And then the speaker is the opposite of that, and it converts an electrical signal back to acoustic air moving. As long as you've got a quality piece of equipment that does what it's supposed to do physically, then you can then learn with your mixer how to maximize and bring the best out of that with your EQ, or if you have compression and things like that. But
Mm-hmm.
the important thing is that it's a quality foundation you're working off of. And so that's why I recommend not bare bones, like bottom dollar, whatever. Again, if you have that and it was given to you or whatever, great.
Yeah, you
Like,
got to start somewhere. Sure.
exactly,
Of
go get
course.
them. But when you can, you don't have to spend crazy money, but it is important to get something that's at least at a professional level.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
Yeah.
Okay, this is helping so much. I know a lot of people are like, right on. I've learned
Yeah,
more
yeah.
about all this than I ever thought I needed to know, and it's good stuff.
And I think past that, your ears will tell you
Yeah.
when and if you need to upgrade further, because you can gig on that stuff for years
Mm-hmm.
and gain experience and knowledge. And then if you want to upgrade from there, you'll know.
Yeah.
You'll know.
Yeah.
I personally still use an SM58,
Okay.
and
I
it's
like
great.
them.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
great.
they work great. Like you said, it's a workhorse. Okay, real quick, some common mistakes that people make. We talked about one, when you pull out the cord before you mute yourself and it makes a loud noise.
Yes.
What else? And we talked about the feedback, right?
Placing your speaker behind the microphone.
Right. Is there something else?
Bad juju. I see people, we may have talked about this already. In the instance of putting the speaker behind them, they get the really zingy, high frequency, squeaky feedback, and they'll then reach for the high frequency band on their mixer, and they'll turn that down. And then again, it sounds like this.
Right.
You can't, again, you're already in a muddy, boxy, weird room, and then you take all of the clarity out of the microphone because not because the equipment is malfunctioning, but because you are in control of that. You placed it in the wrong place.
So don't try to fix it with EQ.
Right.
Fix it with placement.
EQ is the last thing. EQ and compression are the last thing. Those are enhancements. That's like makeup, right? It's the enhancement at the end of the day. I'm not going to worry about like trimming and lining up and edging my beard if I can't grow one in the first place.
Sure.
So I want to make sure that the foundation is good and that I'm doing what I can to control the variables that I do have control over, which is speaker placement, microphone placement. You probably don't have control over the room.
Sure.
Stuff like that.
Usually we don't.
Yeah.
We just have to work with what we've got.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you've really given us a lot of good information to help us do that.
Yeah. Well, I've made every mistake in the book. I have.
Same.
Yeah.
Same. To a point where I was crying one time before a gig started because the feedback was so bad and I was so embarrassed. I just wanted to run out the door and hide. But you still have to get up and you still have to perform. And so, but this is helping a lot. I think this is really good stuff. If you want to know more, I would suggest this. This is a big opportunity. You can book a one-on-one session with this guy right here who knows everything about this. And he can spend a lot of time with you and talk to you about your specific equipment and your specific venues and whatnot. And he can help you with that. And you can find his information at his website, deeperrecordings.com. That is his recording studio. So you want people reaching out to you there?
Absolutely.
And trying to talk more about this and even more detail?
Yeah, I'm happy to book everything from consultations and Q&As to lessons and obviously also recording sessions as well.
That's awesome.
There's a form on the website that they can go to and fill out.
Oh, nice.
And if it is regarding just questions with their sound system or because it's a recording session form, they can just put whatever, there's a message or comments thing, type out your info there. Tell me what you're here for, and we'll get stuff scheduled, and we can help you out.
That's really cool that you're willing to do that.
Oh, yeah.
And
Absolutely.
to share your expertise and your knowledge.
Well, because it makes the music scene better.
That's right.
Because we have a million talented musicians in town and so many places to play. And unfortunately, there's times that I go out and I'm like, man, these guys are awesome. And the sound is like wonky. And I feel so bad.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to go up there and be like,
hey guys, you know what would make this better?
Yeah, exactly. Let me tell you something.
I'm a musician too.
Exactly. It's going to be weird. Like, don't do that. But yeah, it makes everybody better. It enriches the music scene. It's going to make your music land better with your audience. It's going to allow you to get booked back. And because of that, restaurants, bars, venues, everywhere in town is going to be more happy with you.
Yeah.
And they're going to see that people are enjoying the music so that they know their investment went to something good. This person cares. And it's good for everybody.
Yeah. When one wins, we all win.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially in a small town like this, we have to take care of each other. If you want to find Sam on socials, you can check out his Insta at Sam Choate Music. And Choate is spelled Choate.
That's it. You can think of Choate.
Nice.
In your mind. That gives you all of the vowels in my name.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
And on TikTok at Sam Choate. Okay. All right. Thanks, Sam, so much for your great information and for joining us here for this. And thank you for watching. For more great topics pertaining to improving your music career, check out the other videos on this YouTube channel, as well as the website lubbockculturalarts.org for upcoming workshops and opportunities, and follow Lubbock Cultural Arts Foundation on all their socials. Okay, also, if you want a copy of this presentation, it'll be on the website, so you can click through all the slides and whatnot. And,
there will be a downloads
there.
tab.
Yeah.
And also, like I said, reach out if you have any questions about your specific situation.
Sounds good. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Hannah.
Thanks, y'all.